All
All
right.
right,
I'm Evan Bierman.
man.
This is Dan Sloak. You're listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. Today on the show, we're going to recap the Super Bowl halftime show, the NBA trade deadline, and we're going to talk a little spring training that's just right around the corner. But Dan, you got a nice dark beer there. What are you drinking, man?
I have the 2022 proprietor Bourbon County Stout blend. So this came out in
Mouthful.
2022. It's part of their Bourbon County Stout series. Again, another one that comes in just like great packaging. I think they do a really nice job with that. I like to look at their bottles as well. Like the front side is kind of just an old classic looking engraved etched in bottle, and then the back side does have a label. But a little bit about this beer, and then a little bit about Goose Island as I was researching it. But the recipe was dreamed up between two brewers there at Goose Island, Jason Krasowski and Paul Cade. They spent the night out of the town trying some of the best cocktails that Chicago had to offer, and they were kind of then brainstorming, what their next Bourbon County Stout might be. So the brewers kind of decided to make it a cocktail blend that combines banana, coconut, lime, and then this is the newest ingredient to the stout family, pineapple. So they add that in there, and it's supposed to be fresh and shares kind of both the common expressions found in both bourbon and the original Bourbon County Stout. So they put it all together to make this proprietor's blend. It says, it's perfect to bring Chicagoans down to the tropics during the cold winters. But I'm going to give it a sip in a second. I was Googling Goose Island, and I wanted to figure out, the history of the brewery. We always kind of like to do that and find some digging. And I was trying to see what the founder was doing before he founded Goose Island, because I remember reading that he founded it when he was about 40 years old. So I was curious what he did before there. His name's John Hall, and I couldn't find anything. So I'm curious what 40-year-old goes to Europe, gets inspired by European beer, and comes back and says, I'm going to start a neighborhood in one of the most kind of well-known neighborhoods in a city like Lincoln Park in Chicago, just like Goose Island did. So I'm curious what he did before. I'm wondering if this guy was ready to go, well off, and just kind of did this as a hobby, or if he just gambled everything after that vacation. I hope it's the latter. But yeah, Goose Island, they eventually sold out in 2012, I believe, to Anheuser-Busch for about 30 million. But this beer is 4.35 and Untapped. It's 13.5%. Let me give a sip here.
Ooh, 13.5%. There you go. That'll knock you on your ass for sure. But pineapple in a beer,
it's not bad,
especially in a stout. Yeah.
The coconut definitely, the coconut's strong on the nose. Like I smell it as I'm putting it up to my mouth. It doesn't have all the harshness. I forget what the name of the one that I did a few weeks ago, the other Bourbon County Stout. That was more bourbon forward. This is definitely, it's got the finish of a little like bourbony, almost kind of that like smoky flavor, but the front is very, very fruity. It's very coconutty. A little bit of pineapple, but yeah, this ain't bad at all. This is more like I don't know what this is. This is pretty delicious though. I like it. What are you drinking?
Nice. I got something delicious as well. It's a New Glarus Spotted Cow, very well-known beer in the Midwest and probably around the country as well, I would think. They've been around for a while. They started in 1992. They're based out of New Glarus, Wisconsin. Daniel Carey and Deb Carey founded it back in 1992. Daniel got his diploma master brewer's certificate at the Institute of Brewing in London. Deb was actually raised the capital for the startup of the brewery as a gift to Daniel for completing his master brewer's exam. And so she established herself as the first woman to found and operate a brewery in the United States back in the 90s, early 90s. So they began by converting an abandoned warehouse in New Glarus to their original Riverside Brewery. The first barrels rolled out of there in November of 1993, which is very quickly. It was the fastest microbrewery startup ever. And that Riverside Brewery is still used today to make all their special and R&D style beers. So if you ever go and you do a brewery tour there, you can pick up the special and R&D style beers, as well as, Spotted Cow and some of the classics, some of the year-round beers as well. But
nice.
So this one is the Spotted Cow. It's a Wisconsin farmhouse ale. It's a 3.89 on Untapped. It's 4.8%. It's brewed with flaky barley, finest Wisconsin malts. They say it's naturally cloudy to allow the yeast to remain in the bottle to enhance the fullness of flavors. But you're in Wisconsin when you see the Spotted Cow. So the availability of this since 2003, they've been true to the only in Wisconsin that they write on the label here. the brewery does not distribute any of its beer, including Spotted Cow, out of the state. They would make a killing, I think, if they did.
Yeah.
But they're staying true to that. It's an employee-owned operation. Very cool brewery. But another cool thing I thought was the name. In 1997, they were enjoying the English countryside after winning a beer competition in London for their Belgian Red. And Deb found herself admiring the sheep and thought people must be doing the same when they come to Wisconsin and they see the cows. I thought that was interesting because I've never thought that when I've driven to Wisconsin.
No,
But they
not at
returned
all.
home. They got to work on their new flagship beer, and the name they chose was Spotted Cow. And the rest is history. That's their flagship beer here. So
Interesting.
Spotted Cow, if you're ever in the Midwest or you're in Wisconsin, definitely get some. It's on tap everywhere, and it's my favorite beer, 100% from Wisconsin. So
Yeah. That's like every
Yeah.
family. Anytime in the Midwest you go to Wisconsin, everyone's always like, bring back a case of Spotted Cow, please.
yeah, and so my brother came in for the Super Bowl
Yep.
and brought a case of Spotted Cow, and that's why I have this here. But
Perfect.
the Super Bowl was on Sunday, and
Sure was.
the biggest takeaway for me was the QB play of this Super Bowl. It might have been the best QB play on both sides that I've ever seen. And so we'll start there with Mahomes and Hurts. Mahomes, Super Bowl MVP. A couple stats here on Mahomes that I thought were really interesting. He joins Brady and Montana as multiple-time Super Bowl MVPs. Brady's got 5, Montana's got 3, but Mahomes is only 27, still playing in his prime. He's got plenty of time to catch both of those guys. He might be the best quarterback we've ever seen. First quarterback to lead in the NFL in both passing yardage, passing TDs, and win the Super Bowl. So kind of a triple crown there as far as that goes. And then on the other side, Jalen Hurts in this game alone, 15 carries for 70 yards, Super Bowl record for a quarterback, scored 3 touchdowns. That's the record for any player, regardless of position. 20 points on his own. Another record for any player, regardless of position. And then it was 27 of 38 for 304 and a touchdown, no interceptions. I mean, that's as good as it gets on both sides. What did you think of both those guys?
Yeah, no, it was a good, entertaining game. I think I was talking to some friends that I had over as well, just reminiscing on some of the recent Super Bowls being absolute duds. Specifically, I think 3 or 4 years ago there was that Patriots. I think it was like Patriots Rams where it was like 13-6 or something like that, and with like no touchdowns thrown, or I don't know, 12-6. Anyways, this was a lot of fun. It was a really good game. I really enjoyed watching Hurts. Speaking to his 3 touchdowns, it's unbelievable when they have how confident they were going forward on 4th down or 4th and 1 or 4th and goal, 3rd and goal. They need 1 yard and they do that QB sneak. It's like automatic for them. I think a lot of people are going to see what was that just straight up offensive line or the people in the backfield pushing the quarterback forward. And we might see that kind of, change the game moving forward with how many teams in these short yardages are going to go with a quarterback sneak on those. I know Brady was pretty good at it. Jalen Hurts is automatic. Bears fans are probably looking at, Fields that he's probably just going to be adopting that same play as well. Mahomes doing all this on that ankle. Really, really impressive. His top target, I feel like I kept hearing, I don't know the stats, but Juju Smith-Schuster seemed to be getting the ball quite a bit. And for a team to lose, their number 1 receiver down to Miami and then come back with this, crew of Juju Smith-Schuster and Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney. That's the other thing, man. Those plays, I don't know what Philly was doing. They'd put them in motion, chop down, and they just go right back and they'd cut back to where they were. And the linebackers were just overcommitting, thinking they were going to stay and do like a drag across the field. And that worked for him like at least 3 times. But I enjoyed the game thoroughly. I thought it was a really good football game. The broadcasting I thought was all right. I think it was weird to have like Greg Olsen and I forget the other guy's name do a Super Bowl. Didn't seem like it was that, big marquee game to have them doing it.
Were you hoping for a buck?
Yeah, I was hoping for a buck. I think Joe Buck deserves to do the Super Bowl. I'm a fan of his, but yeah, I mean, it was like Greg Olsen and some guy, I don't even know his name. Give me the big guns, it's the Super Bowl. But I enjoyed the game. I thought commercials were all right. Game was good. It's one play where Hurts fumbled the ball, really kind of cost him the whole entire game. If he doesn't fumble, they scoop and score for 6 there. Different story, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot less people talking about that than that holding call at the end of the game. That seemed to be the one that everyone had, that was their biggest takeaway
It's a tough
not
call, man. What
Hurts
did you think
fumble.
watching it? We had people
Yeah,
yelling at the TV.
yeah. It definitely didn't look like one, or it was, but they let that go most of the time. You know,
Exactly.
90% of the time. It's a tough spot to call something like that, but Bradbury himself saying after the game that it was a hold and
Garbage.
acknowledging that. So
Garbage.
for me, I'm okay with it, but I don't know, it's tough. It's tough to have a Super Bowl end on something like that,
It
whether it
sucks.
would have
You let the
changed the outcome of the
players,
game or not.
yeah, like let the players. I mean, that play, it's like they said, you call holding on every single play on offensive, defensive line right there. Like that is a play that happens almost every single time a route is run. You do put your hands on a player. It's a physical football game, and then to be doing it on the most important drive of the game as well. Uh, what can we do? Like, how do you stop that from happening? The refs are on or under just as much pressure when those situations are happening. Do you want them to just swallow the whistle? Do you want them to stand pat? Do you go like 2 minutes at the end of the game looking forward? You go like automatic referee robot eye in the sky kind of reviews to where only the robots call it in the last 2 minutes? I don't
I
know.
don't know, but do you feel like at this point, and I guess Mahomes has earned this, but he's definitely gotten these superstar calls a lot more than everybody else, at least in
Yeah.
this playoffs.
I
I
mean, the
noticed,
the game
he's
before
got the
too, right? It
LeBron.
was rough
Yeah.
in the passer. I mean, which was a little bit, but like it just seemed a little unfair again to like give him that first down, put him in field goal range. This was another third down play or something where it gave him that yardage and ultimately
Brady's
ended
gotten
up
those for
winning the
years
game. But
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think, maybe as Chicago fans, we've never really witnessed it in our lifetime since we
So we
were,
never had a quarterback.
after the Super Bowl as well, like the 85 Super Bowl. But maybe that's just what the good ones get those calls because they put themselves in the situation to where those things are happening, to where they are driving to win the game and calls do happen. And it's just because they're so good, they're always in that situation. Then you end up hating them and becoming jaded because like, oh, he gets all the calls. Well, he gets all the calls because he's in that situation because he's great. And I think
Yeah.
that might be what's happening. And I think as Chicago fans, we just love to hate because we're never in those situations.
Right. And I think of Rodgers too and the way he kind of plays for penalties sometimes with the quick snaps and things like that. So yeah, the great ones I think get those calls, but they do, you're right, put themselves in those situations.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that call at the end of the game. I think Philly handled it well after the game. They acknowledged it. They, congratulated them. But then Juju on Twitter just kind of being a dick
I
with,
didn't see any of this. What did he say?
yeah, he posted something about it was like a Valentine's Day card that said, um, you know, this Valentine's Day, I'll be holding you when it matters most. And it was like a picture of James Bradbury. So
Oh,
I think
wow.
it was funny, but it wasn't like
I saw some other funny
necessary. I feel
ones
like it was a
too.
cheap shot right after the Super Bowl.
I saw
I
like
don't
the
know.
Melvin Gordon one where he got like interviewed. And they're like, how does this, championship like compare to championships you've been a part of in the past, college or high school, or whatever? He's like, well, I didn't do shit on this one. So this one's pretty nice. There's a couple of those stories. I know he was on there. The punt returner from the Bears this year, who we cut because he fumbled it a bunch. Smith Morset, I believe his name was, got signed by the
Hmm.
Chiefs. So he's getting fitted for a Super Bowl ring right now. It's crazy how some of those turn of events happen. Did you have a favorite commercial? Did you watch the commercials? Are you somebody who like shushes people at your viewing party because the commercials are on, or do you get up and get another drink?
No, yeah, that's usually when I'm going to get some food or get another drink. We had a solid spread this year, but I didn't really get to catch too many of the commercials. I didn't have a favorite one,
Mm,
but it seemed like, last year was cryptocurrency all the way.
yeah.
Felt like from what I saw, it was like electric vehicles and things like that this year. That was like the big takeaway for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you? Did you have a favorite commercial?
Man, there's this farmer's dog commercial. We have a bunch of dog parents in our friend group out here in San Diego, and it was like showing the life cycle of a dog, and everyone just yelling at the TV, "This dog better not die! This dog better not die!"
I
And it
remember
doesn't.
seeing that
It
one.
doesn't, but it shows the dog, from a puppy and the little girl, and then the girl's like getting married, and the dog's older, and just their life together. It was very sweet, but also like everyone was yelling at the TV, like this better not happen. It was a good one. And then the halftime show, man, I gotta say, I was excited for Rihanna because good music, hit music. I thought there was going to be so many walk-ons. I thought there was going to be so many appearances. And then nothing, man. Instead, we got Super Smash Brothers like level. where platforms are floating in space, and she's pregnant. Congratulations. But not a whole bunch of like showmanship or things really happening. What about you?
Yeah. I liked the like platforms. I thought that was kind of cool, different. Um and to think like if you were up there and performing that high up, that's pretty scary. I feel like
Yeah,
even though she
yeah,
was
yeah.
like strapped in to where she couldn't fall off, seemingly it was wide open. I mean, that's a little nerve-wracking, I think, to be up that high. She handled it really well. And yeah, she was pregnant. And I
But I
think
mean,
that's
she's
amazing in itself to
yeah,
be out there doing that and doing some of the moves
100%.
that she was doing for sure. So I think, because of that, but
I mean,
was
Jay
it
Z was
what
at the
everyone was
game.
expecting? I don't know.
Jay Z was
Yeah.
at the game, and she sings a song where he's on it as well. Like, dude, like you couldn't make it happen. What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't think that it's like, some people want to do it on their own, right? Where they just don't want any like help with it and they want to say that they were the one at the Super Bowl that did this and they don't want other people talking about, that one little
Maybe because I
walk
did
on
see
that
a
somebody
stat
had.
saying like, her streaming numbers like completely increased. What's her bra company, Fendi or something like that she's sponsored by, like sales are up 500, like everything's up 500% post Super Bowl. So maybe you're right. Maybe it was more of a me move, kind of like, it's not gonna be that great, but it's all gonna be eyes on me, and business is booming. But
Yeah, I think
overall,
the eyes
like
on me for sure.
I gotta say, like overall, to have people yelling at the TV in the last 30 seconds of a Super Bowl game, like it was a good game. It was a good football game.
Yeah. Where do you rank it last 20 years? Is there any that are
I
ahead
can't
of
do
that for
that.
you?
I can't do that. I would just say it's probably one of my favorites in recent history. There is, like I said earlier, there's been some like real dud games where like not even touchdowns were being scored. So some of these plays early, like Hurts throwing up those like end zone routes to what's his name, AJ Brown, and he's just going up like dodging a cornerback, like changing and just going up and getting the ball, like pure faith throwing those up there. A lot of fun plays to watch, high scoring game, fun quarterbacks. Just wish the broadcasting crew was a little bit better and the halftime show was better, but really good football game.
Yeah, great
You
game.
got a ranking? Are you able to rank
I
this in
think
the
it's
last 20 years?
no, I don't know. I think it's up there. It's top 3 for me, at least in
Yeah.
recent memory for
Do you have a
sure.
favorite Super Bowl? Yeah, I
No, I
mean,
guess I don't really have one
because our
that's
teams are
like
never in it.
stands
So
out
we,
as the
yeah,
yeah.
if our teams are in it, it would be a favorite. I think my favorite Super Bowl of all time is Tennessee Titans, St. Louis Rams with Kurt Warner and Antonio Dyson falling short, or not. Yeah, Steve McNair and Antonio Dyson falling short on like the 5 yard line. That was like the Super Bowl growing up.
Yeah,
One of the
that's
best
right.
games. That was like one of the best games.
Yeah. And speaking of the Bears never being in it, what do you think? What is this season now that it's over? What are you expecting? Does
Big
anything
moves.
change? I know, like you said, the Jalen Hurts, fourth down QB sneak thing where they like line up and it almost looks like they're gonna do a kneel down. Like
Yeah.
it's coming. Everybody in the building knows it's
Yeah.
coming, and they still get it every single time. I think somebody was telling me that the percentage of the time that they're successful in that's like 85%. We need to adopt that
Yeah.
100%. You know,
100%.
Fields can do that. He can do the same thing there.
We also need to have a coach in Eberflus who has the charisma and kind of persona like Sarasani. Is Sarasani? Is that I think it's
Sirianni.
Sirianni. Um, to like have the players buy into that, like, hey, we're gonna be an aggressive team. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
just, I wish we had a coach with a little more edge than we do. But 100%, I think I heard this morning or maybe yesterday on Mully and Hall on 670 in the morning. Compare that to like a Roman phalanx, like battlefield formation where like everyone lines up with their shields kind of thing, and you're able to like move
Hmm.
forward like inch by inch, but you're moving forward. That's the kind of play that to adopt there with those short yardages. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And the big news, I guess, for the Bears is that they closed on their Arlington Heights property. They got 320 plus acres now of land. So we'll
I like
see
their.
how long it takes
Did
to
you see
to
the
do it.
statement that they released?
No.
It was like, we're happy to announce that we closed on the property. We're not sure if this will be developed or not, but it's a step forward in like the Chicago Bears like franchise legacy. I'm like, what in the world could they possibly build if they're going to stay in Chicago? Would they just make it a Chicago Bears racetrack and just have like a big casino there where Chicago
Got it. I
Bears
mean,
like
it's got to be a
amusement park?
stadium
It's
where
got to
it's
be a stadium.
yeah. or it's a selling point for maybe selling the team. Like, hey, you have the team and you get this piece of property to build
Yeah.
a stadium when you want to do it. Cause the McCaskies, I feel like, have been pretty stingy,
Yeah. There was
since they've
also
been the
other
owners.
big news today though as well. Did you see what was, I think it was today, what the Colts they introduced? So did you notice that Eagles lose the Super Bowl day after or like week after OC, DC both get head coaching jobs? OC went to Indianapolis, so he's the new Colts head coach, and the DC went to Arizona to become the new Cardinals head coach. So their coaching staff absolutely got destroyed. But Irsay,
Wow.
the owner of the Colts, they're talking about the presser, they're talking about the future, and he goes and says, we all know the importance of a quarterback in this league, and we're going to be really aggressive in the draft this year, like possibly moving up. And the GM kind of like snaps his neck and looks at him. He's like, dude, what? He's like, shh. He's like, yeah, that Alabama kid looks really good. He's like, dude, this is going to blow up on Twitter. Like he said something like that right next to him. And Irsay owns the team, so he can say whatever he wants, but
Yeah. He's drunk half the time anyways.
he's completely showing their hand. And that's great for Bears fans, right?
Yeah.
Most of us believe we want to trade back.
Price of the pick just went up.
And you just have a team admitting they're going to trade up. And you're like, well, we know your plan. Now it's how much, right? It's completely like the worst poker face of all time from the Indianapolis Colts. But good news for the Bears.
Yeah. There's not many quarterbacks out there. We'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers, but Derek Carr also got released. So he's out there. Sounds like the Saints are really interested in him. So we'll see where he lands, but there's really not a lot of names. Maybe Garoppolo is another one that teams are looking at, but you got a lot of teams that need quarterbacks, And I think the Bears will get something done. They'll move back. Hopefully they can still get one of those top edge rushers.
It'd be great.
And yeah,
a lot of picks,
and some picks. So, all right, let's move on to the NBA trade deadline. We talked about it last week a little bit. The Bulls, we didn't think they were going to do anything. We knew they needed to. They didn't. And what do you think about the state of the Bulls, Dan? What's your hopes for the future? What are we looking at here?
Team stinks. I'm absolutely I'm hate watching this team right now. They just lost tonight to the Pacers. I think they're up by 20 odd points and they let up 40 in the fourth or 40 in the third quarter, or like 38 in the fourth, like an absolute, just giving up effort. It's probably one of the most frustrating teams. I mean, this is we're back to maybe more frustrating than the Jim Boylan Bulls because we knew they were bad. We knew he was a clown. And this team is just giving up, right? They have talent, but they're just playing with no effort. They're softer than Charmin. They were one of two teams. How do you look at this team and how they are playing, and you are managing the decisions of this roster, and you do not make any moves at the trade deadline? That is a fireable offense, in my opinion. They go on to lose 4 straight after the trade deadline. They have no life at all in this team. They're not listening to Billy. Billy doesn't know what to do. He's being very political and diplomatic in his pressers, but he really wants to tear into these guys because they're not doing anything. Our max player is not a winner. Zach LaVine is not a winner. He's a stat stuffer. He's always has been, always will be. He's a third player on a good team, and he's a max player on our team. Pat Williams, no fight in that dog right now. That guy gets punched in the nose
right now or ever.
Probably ever.
Just admit he's never had that dog. He's never gonna have it.
I mean, he gets punched in the nose and he runs away.
Yeah, he's just not that guy. He's not that guy. He wasn't that guy when they drafted him. Was he even a starter he went to Florida State,
Florida State, I think he was their 6th man as a freshman.
6 man. And would we draft him top 4?
Yeah.
That should have been your tell right there,
Yeah, it's frustrating, man. But at least they got a future. At least they got a lot of draft picks coming up. Wait a minute. No, they don't. They don't have any draft picks in the near future. The only draft picks we could look forward to are in 2028 and 2026, possibly. We've mortgaged our future from the previous regime to this regime, trading picks with San Antonio for DeMar DeRozan, Larry Markkinen, to the Jazz. We traded him somewhere, Portland, I think. Like we're terribly stuck right now. We have no drafts and no draft picks this year. 2024, no draft picks. 2025, we have no draft picks. So unless we make trades here, we have no draft picks until 2026, really. And this team stinks. It's one of the hardest watches of all time. Like
Yeah.
I almost want them to just call up the G League team, put Io at the one, Dalen Terry, Carlick Jones, I think his name is like scoring 40 on the G League. Put him in there. Get Marko Simonovic back up on the team. Like, are you serious right now? Like, you guys
were big on
suck.
Simonovic too.
You guys absolutely suck. This team's terrible. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to play. It's the most like for people who hate the NBA because players get paid too much money and like they don't have to try. The Bulls are the optimal team in that category where they just look like they're satisfied to be NBA players and they don't care if they win or lose. And it's the most frustrating thing to watch as a fan. I can't stand it, but I'll watch every game.
You're better than I am, better Bulls fan than me, because I can't watch that at all. And the other piece of this too, I think Lonzo Ball being shut down, or at least that's the discussion right now, or the word that they're going to shut him down. Maybe they're just waiting for the media heat to die down a little bit before they do that, because
no, I think they said they're going to announce it All-Star break, so it's not it's lost in the shuffle.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're trying to get all this attention that's on them for not doing anything, and then for them to say, yeah, and also this player that we told you might come back is not going to come back, and we are basically going to go nowhere. We have no picks. Team stinks. We didn't get anything for Vooch.
He tore his meniscus a year ago. Players tear their meniscus in the NBA and they're back in like a month. They're back in 3 months. We thought last year when it happened at the All-Star break that Lonzo was going to be back for the playoffs. And now he's out for another year. Like, dude, there's no like loyalty to the team to where like you want to go out and play. It's a players league now, so you look out for yourself. You can't blame him, man. Lonzo wants to sit out another year and come back healthy and get another fat contract. Good for him. Why go out there and further, depreciate your value and show people that you have no needs?
Yeah.
It sucks, man. It absolutely freaking stinks. I want to swear right now, but I can't, Evan. No, I can't if I wanted to, but this team sucks, man.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah. It's brutal. We'll look for another update towards the end of the season.
But you know what I am?
It shakes out.
At least I do have, as a Chicago sports fan, like where I'm actually like cautiously optimistic. And maybe it's because, the Bears were the worst team in the NFL this year and the Bulls are absolutely terrible right now. I only got one option and it's the Cubs, man. Like I'm like monitoring players showing up for spring training. You know me, like I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to some of these things too. I'm like, man, this team puts it together. We got Dansby at short, Nico at second, up the middle. We are dominating on defense. We're getting on base. We're like old school kind of baseball team. Get them on, get them over, get them in kind of deal. Seiya shows up jacked. Everyone's showing up early. Rossi's talking to the media saying there's a different vibe this year after, COVID years and shortened spring training and people showing up late. Like this is 100% different. We got nothing like that's going on the South Side where you have a bunch of, accusations being thrown at your players and media, and you signed a guy who's being, accused of like abuse. Like the Cubs are looking pretty good, man.
I guess in that sense, yes. I still am
pitching.
I
Still
guess,
pitching, right?
Yeah, it's the pitching for me. And Pacoda predicts that, which is an algorithm from Baseball Prospectus, actually stands for Player Empirical Comparison and Optimization Test Algorithm, if you're curious.
What do we got?
Pacoda. There you got the Cubs going 77 and 85, just 3 games better than last year with all the improvements that they made.
I'd put money on that they're above 500.
They're saying the Cubs have only a 9.5% chance to make the playoffs and 4.2% chance to win the division. So cautiously optimistic for you, maybe a little bit, but to me, hearing 9% chance to make the playoffs, I don't know. I think it's tough to swallow, especially looking at the pitching staff and hoping for a huge bounce back from Kyle Hendricks. you're hoping that some of these young pitchers
Stroman
really
too,
step
to
up.
be honest.
Yeah, you need a big bounce back from Stroman, who's only getting older. I think he's mid-30s now. But he did say on Twitter he's feeling the best he's ever felt.
Of course,
So,
everyone's showing up best.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, look at the outfield, man. Bellinger,
Yeah.
Seiya, and Happ.
Yeah. It's a good outfield. Great outfield.
That's
Seiya,
it.
Seiya's jacked. He's ready to go. He's joking around with Bellinger. They're all showing up early. I mean, the team's
It's gonna be
looking
fun.
interesting.
At least it's gonna be fun to watch
Yeah.
because it's a team that has direction. And when you're talking
Right.
about that's why people watch the Bears this year as well. Like, Bears were fun to watch this year because you knew the direction, you knew you're watching a young quarterback develop, and that's
who
why
to watch.
you know who to
Right.
watch. And that's why the Bulls are just terrible, because you watch that team, you're like, what are we doing? What is the purpose of this year?
Who's going to be here in 2-3 years? Yeah.
Exactly. And then we have no prospects either. Cubs, at least, post Theo, tough transition, but Jed's kind of taken this team and completely flipped it. There's like no one here besides Hendricks from the championship year. All new players are in the pipeline as well. A lot of young talent that's getting talked about, showing up in the top 100 prospect lists. Our farm system's back up in the top 10 again. It's kind of those early years that we had. Remember in Chicago, I invite you over to my apartment. We watched Javi Baez, his first game up in the majors, struck out like 4 times, but then hit a home run in extra innings. And we're like, all right, we're here, man. Like, the Cubs are starting to do things. Like, that's going to be this year. We're going to call up Brennan Davis, might make the team up this year, might get called up. Monitoring Pete Crow Armstrong, right? Remember these kind of things that we used to do? We used to monitor the farm system, players doing pretty well. Chris Bryant's 3 for 4. Schwarber had 3 jacks last night in Iowa, right? Like, it's back, man. Like, I think the Cub fever got, post World Series hangover, losing all of our star players. People kind of got out on the team a little bit, but for the diehards, for the people that kind of really just love the sport and love to watch them, I think that feeling, at least in my opinion, should be back.
Yeah. And speaking of Javi, man, I miss watching Javi play in the Cubs uniform. But I think someone posted the other day that I think it's over the last few years, Javi swung at the most pitches outside of the zone by like the biggest margin. He fell off pretty hard after he left the Cubs.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he got paid.
He was doing that.
It's hard
Yeah,
to
he was
focus after getting all that money.
Yeah, I'll still always love that guy, but yeah. So cautiously optimistic on the Cubs. I believe it, and I'm ready.
You do? I don't think you believe it at all. Do you?
We'll see. It's still
Yeah,
early.
exactly.
I want to see
There
some
you go.
spring
We'll
training
see.
games. I want
We'll
to see
see.
what the team actually looks like, But there are some players to watch, and I think that's the most important piece. Is that when you turn on a game, it's not just a bunch of
1 year stopgap, holdover kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Like Patrick Wisdom,
yeah,
he seems like a great guy, but he was never somebody that was going to be, a building block for the future. Now you got Dansby Swanson you can watch.
Yep.
Last year we had Seiya. I was monitoring him all year. I think he's a great piece.
Ian Happ's going to continue to develop.
Finally,
we got some
Nico
young
stays
arms
healthy
too,
all year. We
Yeah.
can watch Nico Horner all year, hopefully. And then we'll see what happens at first base. Maybe Mervis comes up and he kills it. Otherwise, we got some other veterans that might stick.
I mean, we got a lot of
there's some
signings this
stuff
year. It was
to
nice.
watch.
Trey Mancini, Hosmer, like, it's going to be a good clubhouse. It's going to, I think we're going to have some fun. At least it's going to be fun to watch. Like you said, they're going to be notable players or young players with promise. It's not players that have been in the league for 10 years and they all of a sudden are coming up and playing first base for the Cubs.
Yeah. And I think we're past that, like the core's gone, right? Wilson's gone now. He was the last one. And the whole discussion last year was, are we going to keep him? Is he going to stay with the team? Nobody really said anything. They didn't have any contract discussions. Then he leaves. There's not really anybody else left there that you're like, man, I really hope they retain this player. So now from here, it's just like, okay, we got a few guys that we know are going to be here. Dansby's on a 7-year deal. Seiya is going to be here for at least another 4 years, I think. You got some guys that are going to be there for a while. And so, we're not worried about like, oh, let's keep these players on the team. It's who's going to show up and who are then we going to realize that we want to have for the next few years. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to, I think. I don't think it's going to be a playoff team, but
you think they're going to finish under 500 like Pacoda predicts?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think it'll be under 500, but moving in the right direction. I think they'll be better than last year. So pretty close to 500.
Fair enough.
But yeah. All right. I got a fast fact for you before we get out of here.
Okay.
It's related to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts, for all of our fantasy football fans, had 41.16 fantasy points in the Super Bowl. It's the second most in Super Bowl history, narrowly trailing 41.9 points that 49ers quarterback Steve Young had in 1995. So the best fantasy finish in a Super Bowl by a quarterback since
Was there
1995. Steve Young.
fantasy football in 1995, or is that like looking at stats and equating to what it would be with today's metrics?
Both. I think there was back in the day. I mean, it was all done, via newspaper.
Pencil
and,
to paper. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's
But
crazy.
that's
though.
our show. Yeah. Thanks again for joining us today. For Dan Sluck, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.